right, we are here with week 9 of It's Business Time. I'm very, very happy to welcome Joel Margavage to It's Business Time. Welcome, Joel, of EASTMOOR Digital.
Thank you, good sir.
Before we get running, I do want to do a quick shout-out, a quick thank you to Stitch House for having us every week. They have 12 beers on draft. These are all local products. Make sure to come through, check it out. I myself am drinking the Road Soda. Joel, you had the Brussels sprouts earlier.
They were delectable. Yes,
nice.
Very tasty.
I love it. Good menu, good brews. Definitely come down, support your local businesses. And with that, we again welcome Joel here of EASTMOOR Digital. He's got a wealth of knowledge. I'm not even really sure where to start on this guy because we actually were, in a way, sort of business partners back in the day.
That's right.
And by business partners, I mean, what do you call, we were a client of yours back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Strategic partners, yeah.
Strategic partners, I love that. But we're not here to talk about that. We are here to learn about EASTMOOR Digital, what you guys do, and all that type of stuff. Before we get into the meat of what's going on right now in 2023, if you don't mind me asking, just tell me a little bit of how you got into this field and how you found your way to EASTMOOR in the beginning there.
Sure. Well, I'll take it all the way back, throw it all the way back to college.
Please do.
So, I went to school I went to a business school, Goldie Beacom, and I went there for marketing management. And, during one of the semesters, they tried to open up an e-commerce marketing system into the school, and not enough people signed up. I was one of the only people that signed up, so I just got a basic marketing degree. But earlier on, I went out and got into the publishing industry. I worked for Delaware Today for about 8 years, and did sales. And then actually, they had a top places to work issue in November, and they covered a search engine company called eZanga. And I wound up working for a search engine located here in Middletown, Delaware. And they focused on traffic outside of Google, Yahoo, and Bing at the time. And that's where I cut my teeth on internet marketing, was at this internet marketing company.
Do you mind if I ask, and I'm sorry if this dates
Please.
us a bit, but when were you at Delaware Today, and then when did you?
That was around 2006.
Okay.
Yeah, and like I said, I stayed there for about 8 years, and then worked for this search engine company. And after a little while of working there, I wound up in healthcare, and while working there, I ended up doing this instruction class on how to use Facebook that the company was offering. Wow. And I had shared with some of the corporate people in the company at the higher up level that I had some knowledge about the internet after working for a search engine.
Right, and back then that was like gold.
Yeah. So they hadn't touched their website since like '98, and before I knew it, I wound up up in Old City, Philadelphia. There was 3 of us, and we were running internet marketing for a $2.5 billion company. And
out of Middletown, Delaware.
Well, I left Middletown and went up to this the healthcare company. We went up in Philly.
Gotcha.
And while working there, I did that for 8 years, and we grew to a team of 18. And we handled many facets of the business in terms of anything to do with their digital footprint, whether it be across recruiting or any of the different medical practices that they had within the organization. And then, funny enough, I was in my neighborhood playing a local poker game, and one of my neighbors owned a chiropractic practice, and we were all talking shop, and he said, "Hey, why don't you help me out with my business with some internet marketing on the side?"
Right.
And before I knew it, one day while I was working up in Philadelphia for this healthcare company, I got bombarded with about 20 calls from chiropractors all across the U.S.
Wow.
And started working and put in my 2 weeks notice and struck it out on my own in 2012.
So the bombardment, this came from SEO work that you did?
Yeah, in the beginning, really my company offered everything. If somebody needed a website, if they needed social media, whatever the case may be. So
I do want this to be accessible, SEO being search engine optimization. Do you mind telling just like a little bit about that space for those, because one of the goals of this series is really for like people who are just getting into business and they don't know what they don't know yet. They don't know what tools are going to come along. Do you mind giving just a little bit of an overview of like what, like you can even use that chiropractic chiropractic company as an example, like what does that entail? Like, what did you do to change that stuff for them?
Absolutely, yes. So SEO, the word SEO breaks down into search engine optimization, and optimization as a whole is, just improving and trying to do a better job at whatever you're doing. And then search engines being, Google or, Ask Jeeves, all these search engines that are out there these days.
Jeeves.
Right? That's an old one, right?
I love that.
Alta Vista, right?
Yeah.
Dogpile. All these different, TikTok's a search engine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a place where you type in a question or some type of query, phrase, something where you're trying to get an answer, and there's a lot of competition for being the answer to a lot of things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so the idea is to strategically look at who the other folks are that are out there that are creating answers and finding the way to create the best value and offer the best answer for whatever someone's searching for.
Right. Yeah, got you. All right. Yeah, I
Makes
appreciate.
sense?
Yeah, I didn't mean to throw you off there.
No, not at all.
Or not interrupt you there.
Yeah,
but
it's great.
But yeah, it's one of those things where, like, when people are starting a business, and let's say they have an idea for a simple product, right? Like regardless of how quality that product is, letting people know about it is a barrier. It's something that they either struggle with or they have to find help with. And so I know in the last company I was with, like, you were a great help with helping people find us. And that's really, that's the name of the game with the SEO, is like making sure that when people are looking, they can find you. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on that note, a key distinction that I think a lot of people really struggle with is selling themselves or selling a product or a service instead of creating value and helping facilitate them make a decision or educating them on what their options are. I think a lot of times when you have a service or a product that you sell, you don't want to create any barriers to the sale because, with competition and other stuff like that. But if you can be your real authentic self and find a way to serve others and provide valuable information, whether you get the sale or not, that's where you really actually shine through, and where you build up your trust and your authority on stuff. And so a lot of the work that we wind up doing is reorienting people off of themselves and focusing more on how they solve problems and how they can answer questions and speak to people in a way that they can digest that information and be able to do something with it.
Got you. So to go back to EASTMOOR, you were walking me through the chiropractic.
So in 2012, I'm playing cards with this chiropractor, and he says, hey, help me out with digital marketing. And so back then we did a variety of things. We built a brand new website for him. We helped him and consulted him on his branding. We actually hired Dave over there. Thanks for coming out, Dave.
Dave Hayter, week 2.
Little plug there for you, buddy.
Yeah.
So, and basically, working on their image and things like that. And then also kind of digging deep on, like, why do people come out to see a chiropractor? And the reality is, a chiropractor can tell you that he knows everything about your muscular skeletal system and your nervous system and about all of the little nuances in bioscience and things like that. But the reality is people don't care about that. What they do is they want to figure out what's a quick and simple exercise I can do to stop lower back pain so I can play golf.
Right.
And so the reality is a lot of these folks that get highly specialized in the work that they do, they get really caught up in the nuance of the work, and they're communicating at a really high level that isn't digestible for people. So a lot of times we try and break things back down, and the way that we do that is we try and work with a lot of writers that work from like a journalistic approach, which I like to say is informing the uninformed. When you open the paper, you read the news, when you load up whatever news websites you go to, that information is really digestible and easy to read. It's got quick headlines, and you can kind of scan through and get to the information that you want. And we try and help people position themselves so that they can give quick and easy answers to people.
Yeah, no, for sure. You're reminding me of a period where, of course, like where you were helping before was with the Prodigy's music, and we were all thinking about it on like such a cerebral level,
right?
And for those who knew, for those who understood, it was very easy to communicate with them.
Right.
But there was that gap. It's like, we were talking about music on a cerebral level, and meanwhile, people, don't know where middle C was, right?
Yeah.
And so we had to like walk it all the way back and be like, we're not just here to teach music. We're teaching brain development, and then that kind of is like going back 2 steps, and so you could go forward another 3.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's how we helped out this chiropractor is putting it in simple terms. There's activities of daily living. There's things that people want to do that you can relate to them and say like, hey, do you really going out and enjoy taking walks with your partner? Or do you like throwing around the football with your son and you can't do that anymore?
Right.
And, that strikes a chord with people because, there's things in their life that they want to do. They don't want to hear about all of the, the degrees that you have or the nuance of the science. They want to be able to carry on in their daily lives. And, kind of, in a similar sense with music, there's this whole beauty and science behind music and how it works and how to train kids and make it really effective. But, for some people, it may be as simple as working on a child's behavior and giving them something that could occupy them.
Right.
Or,
No, that's great. I've heard the term like, you don't want to sell to people. You want to tell a story, or you want to learn their story and see how what you're offering might fit into their story. And I think that really, like what you just said, kind of really speaks to the sales isn't, a lot of people think sales is convincing people to do something, but really it's like a discovery, right? Like, let's learn to see if this is good for you. And if it is good for you, we don't need to sell anything. There's us, and then there's this other company, and
absolutely,
you can go on price, you can go on quality, you go on these other things, but yeah, and so it makes a lot of sense to help companies kind of, rather than push their product into the world, kind of like educate their customers to decide whether or not this is something that might work for them. Is that?
Absolutely, and in fact, I think that aside from word of mouth, I think the next most effective thing is organically building your audience through authenticity.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people really struggle in today's world with being authentic and being vulnerable and being out there. And I think a lot of that has to do with, we're all perfectly imperfect in a way. And, I think Rick Rubin was talking about this the other day, that like an artist's goal is to reveal through their imperfect self their view of the world.
Yeah.
And, I think a lot of times there's glimmers within that where people can relate to that in their own imperfect self and say, hey, this person is human just like me, and it humanizes everything. And so part of our strategy is to work with people to help humanize them and help tell their story, but also make that connection in a way that is, I don't want to call it like simplifying, but in a way that connects with an audience. In the age that we live in now, I mean, people talk about that our attention span is less than a goldfish.
Yeah.
I think it's like 4 seconds or 3 seconds or something like that.
Yeah.
So to be able to give somebody in a blink test
Yeah.
and say, hey, I have something to offer you that's going to solve something in your life or build value, and I'm going to do it authentically from where I'm coming from, I think is really relatable. And a lot of people are struggling to do that in a world where everybody's telling stories today on the internet.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, you mentioned TikTok for a minute, but yeah, it's like 1 minute you're in there learning and educating, and then the next minute you're down a rabbit hole doing what we all know is a waste of time.
Absolutely.
But let's head back to so chiropractic office. Let's walk our way up to EASTMOOR Digital, because I have a ton of questions about the types of things you've been doing there. So I didn't want to pull you off track before we get there.
No, it's fine. So this one chiropractor, we started working with him. I was just telling Dave, he's got 4 or 5 offices now, and he's getting into some other endeavors. And for a while we wound up working with a lot of chiropractors, and through the years, we've wound up working in all kinds of different, we call them verticals. But one of the things that's interesting.
Do you mean by verticals? Do you mean like
industries, different industries?
Okay, gotcha.
So I mean, we've worked with legal companies, healthcare companies, you name it. I mean, it's really all across the board.
And when you're doing this, are you doing this like project by project? Are you doing this like on retainer, or like I know you do probably a little of all of it, but can you talk a little bit about like what the structure is when you are helping a company? Like
Sure. So This is talking about a little bit more about the earlier days.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we were more of what I would call like a menu of services.
Okay.
It's like, hey, whatever you need, we can do. If it touches the internet or a computer, we're glad to help.
See, I'm already getting ahead of myself.
Yeah. No, you're fine. You're fine. And so what we wound up doing is we were offering this menu of services. At one point, I mean, when I say start this business, I mean, it was essentially me being a freelancer with an LLC.
Right.
Of course, it's changed into
Delaware.
a real business now.
Yeah.
So,
of course.
but at the time, it was just like a smorgasbord of like whatever anybody needed for the internet, any company. And, it was through word of mouth, referrals, things like that. And, built it up to like 70 clients. It was wild.
Yeah.
But I kind of hit a low point with that.
Yeah.
And that was where a big transition had kind of happened for my company. We were actually just doing whatever the clients asked us to do, and it was almost kind of like co-creating and cooking in the kitchen with the client.
Right.
So I don't know if you can imagine, but sitting here in Stitch House and we go ahead and place an order, and then we go into the back and start cooking.
And cook with them. And cook with them, yeah.
Yeah. And so, a lot of stuff like that earlier on, I was really kind of compromising on the direction and the work that we wanted to do in order to be able to just facilitate business. And over the years, we allowed people to tell us what they needed, but now we have streamlined it to what we offer.
Right.
And we offer and we position ourselves as subject matter experts that you bring us in and we make an assessment of where you're at in your business, and we make a recommendation.
Right.
And then a lot of other things that come up too, and this is an area that I really, really like to explore with a lot of businesses, is digital marketing audits.
Right.
There's a lot of people that have a lot of companies out there, and it's really hard in the digital marketing field to understand what your digital marketing company is doing for you.
Right.
And so it's really great, almost
kind of
like
Tier 11.
Right? Yeah. So on that note, a lot of times, we wind up going in and meeting with someone, and they say, yeah, we have a digital marketing company. They're doing all kinds of stuff. And like, well, what kind of stuff? Well, how many phone calls a month do you get?
Right.
How many forms are filled out? How many people are going to your website? What's your cost per lead? And a lot of these folks can't answer these questions. And so what we wind up doing is going in and doing a digital audit.
Right.
And the way I look at a digital audit is it's like getting a second opinion from a doctor. Somebody's going to tell you need to do X, Y, Z. And I think it's always great to hear what other people have to say too. And you may even stay with the digital marketing company that you're with, but now they're taken to account.
Yeah.
And they're going to perform in a way that they should.
Totally.
And then even if they don't wind up working with our company, that's great, because now we've helped reveal something that creates a level of honesty and integrity, and maybe they make a referral down the road or whatever the case may be, but we're out to serve others and build value and help people no matter what in the community.
Yeah, it's always really difficult. Like I you say accountability. I love that term for it. I often use the word tracking, like, trying to remember, like, because it's always difficult. I come from the arts and music world. And when you are playing a show at a place, right, and you bring your people out and you look at bar sales, or you look at, this is like in the music world, this is how we measure success, right? Bar sales on the night. But how do you measure how many people never stepped in that building until you brought them in? And now those people are coming once a week for the wings they got on that one night.
That's right.
Now those people are coming once a week for the wonderful bartender they had that night. And now you're building a year, 2, 3, maybe even 10-year relationship on that one night, but nobody's reaching out to the bands 6 months later saying, hey, thanks for that one regular that you created that night. Here's your 10% on that,
Yeah.
So I've always been very fascinated as like coming from the arts and music world on like when you're in sales, right? Like you get your commission when someone signs the sale.
Right.
But in the arts and music world, the commission, like, it's spread out, and it's so hard to know what was that one thing that made that event special,
right,
or made that thing special and made that repeat customer. So tracking and accountability has always been, a necessary evil, or not evil, a necessary like fascination of mine. So
let's touch on that though for a moment here. I'm really split on we'll just call it Big Brother, right? It's just like somebody with information about us that's kept somewhere,
right.
that we don't, have or whatever. Yeah. If I'm gonna be scrolling on the internet, I mean, if you can tell by me, I'm skinny as a rail. I don't need slim fast ads.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or whatever the case may be. I don't. You know what? Let's take it a different route. I don't need a really luxurious brush for my head. Well, I guess maybe for the beard. Maybe for the beard. But where I'm going with it is you know, I want ads for guitar pedals.
Right.
You know, and stuff like that. So, you know, just like anything in life, you know, all the way from literature to music, you know, I mean, people will say something's bad and some people will say it's something good. I guess it's, you know, what's the intention behind it? What are you using it for?
Yeah.
You know, so on that note too, you know, one of the services that we offer and also along the lines of kind of like auditing, but something that's a very valuable tool is call tracking. So a lot of times what we do is we set up campaigns where whether it's, you know, story-driven content campaign or direct offer paid advertising on you know, the internet. When we set that up, we can actually set up tags that when someone clicks on an ad, the URL, the address that they come through on the top, passes along what we call some variables, and those variables communicate to the website to change the phone number. And what happens is when the phone number changes on the website, it patches through, and we record the call.
Yeah.
Now, when we record the call, we use that as an opportunity for the front desk or the sales to get together with the stakeholders of the company to say, is this a good call or a bad call?
Right.
Now, initially, a lot of people may be apprehensive to being recorded for a call.
Right.
But when you have a good conversation with your boss about sales and performance and you make the adjustments after listening to some calls, nobody cares about listening to the calls anymore because now we're getting success and they're answering the phone in the way that they should. So again, you know, when you get into recording and data and tracking, I think if you're using it to serve your constituents and making sure they're getting the right information, or you're using it internally with your employees to help build value for them so that they can learn more in their skill sets and perform better what they're doing, it's great. It's a great tool. But again, I think that option should always be made clear, and that anybody, you know, that you're communicating with, that they know that their stuff's being tracked, you know?
Right, yeah. No, that's obviously another big thing is letting people know what sort of data you're keeping, how you're using that. I mean, that's not just in small business. That's corporate. That's every avenue of every spot of technology right now.
Yeah.
So in the interest of time, you know, there's so much I'd love to get to on this week. I'm trying to keep these around 20, 25 minutes, keep them digestible. So let's catch up to where you're at now, and maybe if you want to touch back on that transition from running your own firm, 70 clients, and then transitioning into where you're at now.
Yeah, no, it's a quick transition there. So essentially, what happened was that was the low point, was when, you know, we were spinning our wheels, taking calls from clients, you know, responding to whatever they needed at any given moment. And, you know, I was living check to check. I could barely get by, but I was so busy that I had no time to do anything. And that's when I really took a hard look at the business. And that's when we decided to streamline and take more of that, like, consultant doctor's approach, where, you know, we make the prescription for you, and then you sign off on it, and then we execute. And so through the years, what we've done is we've pared down, you know, who we like to work with, what types of companies we work with, and it's become almost even more of an interview process it's a two-way street, you know, where when we're meeting with people.
It's a good spot to be as a business when you're.
Yeah, and that's, so now, you know, we spend a lot more time working in content development and almost specifically in the written word. You know, we work with a team of writers. Obviously, a lot of them are facilitated with ChatGPT these days. I was just
going to ask if you're doing a lot of written word, how much has ChatGPT you? But that's almost like a whole nother podcast.
It is, and to answer that even really quickly is it's. Look, with anything, it's never going to take over anything. It's going to be a symbiotic approach. It's about being able to use the tools together. In the same way that if you had a court stenographer that was bilingual, they're more valuable than someone who could only speak one language.
True.
So it'll just be a facilitation with using that together.
Yeah, and I think a lot about, you know, I've been doing graphic design for 20 years and how terrible I was on Microsoft Paint 20 years ago. And how much help Adobe products have given me through the years.
Right.
And I at first thought ChatGPT was going to blow the doors off everything, but now
I did too.
It just feels a little bit more like, you know, you can call your English teacher and say, hey, I got a paragraph. Can you proofread it? Can you maybe make it? One of my favorite prompts is make this sound professional, because they immediately take your idea and they kick it right back with a couple more words. It's like, indubitably, a couple more like high syllable words. Yeah. But you still have to proofread it. You still have to make sure it doesn't sound like a robot.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're off topic now with the AI tools available.
Yeah.
I can't even wait to start playing with the Adobe generative tools.
Oh yeah. There's cool things cooking there too.
What is it? Fairy? Is that what they're calling it? Fairy
I believe
something?
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just watched a video on that. My mind, just the idea of like putting in. It's like Mid-Journey except not creepy.
Good. Yeah. I found Mid-Journey to be a little creepy.
Mid-Journey's very creepy.
But on the AI note, you did say something that I think is really important that kind of ties the whole thing together. Mm-hmm. And it's really kind of like almost a deep philosophical piece to it. But what's more important, the answers or the question?
Right.
And I think with ChatGPT, where people struggle with is, well, give me all the good answers. You can't get them from ChatGPT unless you know the good questions.
That's well said. Well said. That's a good... You know when to pause. I love that. No, that's great. And again, like this is like a whole nother. I feel like we could do another 20 minutes on how is AI changing the marketing world.
Let me know when.
Yeah. Definitely. I will absolutely have you back. But to kind of wrap up here, or at least try and stay relatively close to the time.
Yeah.
So we're at EASTMOOR now.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's just totally focusing on building out content. And, for the most part, we're working with e-commerce companies, people that sell products nationwide. Mm-hmm. But, we are here in Delaware. Delaware's a small state, and we, there's a lot of people that we know here. And, we're more than happy to facilitate any company that's looking to, do anything to impact with their digital footprint.
Yeah. So this is actually a really interesting time to note. Like, normally we're talking to people who are, there's a lot of like, how do you find clients? How do you find your market? How do you shape and market your product? What you've been talking about is obviously like business dev tools. These are things that if you do it well, like any company in the world can probably benefit from some amount of what you're offering. So it feels like it almost like sells itself. But like one of the questions I always try and ask, right, during this growth period, during these transitions, was there a time, was there a client maybe, was there a moment where you said to yourself, we're doing things wrong and this is not going to work? I mean, because when I hear you talk, you're so passionate about it, you're so knowledgeable. It sounds like it was just this like up and to the right arrow the whole time. But was there a moment like maybe in the transition from your last company to EASTMOOR, or was there a moment in EASTMOOR where maybe you lost a big client? Was there something that threw you guys off, and like how did you get back on track?
Yeah, I like that saying. I don't know if you've ever heard the saying, with every new level comes a new devil. Yeah. And so, it seems like when you feel like that moment where it's like done biblically, it came to pass.
Right.
It just never seems to.
Yeah.
It never seems to, Aaron, and it with each evolution, it seems like there's a new lesson and new growth that comes out of it. But I will say, there's been some times where I've lost some really big clients. Yeah. And you feel really defeated, and it's really, really tough. It's really tough to be an entrepreneur in today's world. Yeah. And I think the only thing that you can really do in those moments is to steel yourself and be tenacious and go out there and keep getting it.
Yeah, get a new one.
Yeah. You got to keep the attitude. You got to keep upbeat, and you got to keep going out there. And you got to remember, everything's a lesson, and there's a growth opportunity out of it. And I don't know if you've ever heard Jocko Willink, but there's a little story that he had with some guys that when he was in the Marines and stuff, and they were in Iraq, and I believe it was Fallujah. But his reports would come to him, and they'd be like, "Oh, we have this issue, that issue," and he'd say, "Good, good." Yeah. Over and over, and they'd be like, "Why do you always say good?" And he says, "Because there's going to be good that's going to come out of this bad. There's going to be an opportunity." I think that's key, is mindset. Mindset's the most important thing for anything you can do. If your service or your product can solve people's problems, if you don't believe in yourself, it just doesn't matter.
Right. Man, well said. Well, I mean, we've talked a little bit too about mindset. You're a very, very good resource for mindset. So now you have to come back twice. One on mindset, one on AI tools in the marketing world.
Hey.
But again, in the interest of time, I do want to give one more shout out to EASTMOOR Digital. You can find them right here for all your small business tools, large business, any size business really. Sorry, I'm so used to saying the term small business.
It's okay.
Is there anything else you want to shout out? Anything I can put links to or anything like that?
I do. Well, it's not necessarily a link, but I do want to plug. I've been kind of announcing this with all these kind of things that I'm trying to work out here. But in 2024, we're going to be launching a company. It's a men's coaching company for accountability. It's called Invictus Alpha Rex, which is Unconquerable Alpha Kings.
Okay.
And it really relates to mindset. And our focus is going to be working with entrepreneur men that want to try and strike that balance between family life, business life, self-improvement.
Yeah.
How do you fit that all in? What does that look like, and can you have it all?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, definitely an interesting space right now. There's a lot of shifting landscapes, and quite frankly, to go back to AI for a minute, a lot of places where people who have felt value for a long time are starting to not feel that same value. And it's not like we can just turn back and go back to making spears and hunting things in the woods. We're in the world we're in. So I think there's always going to be a space for all the different groups, whether marginalized or, top of the line. There's always going to be a space for people who are feeling isolated. So I think that's an awesome cause there. But yeah, again, thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you.
This has been awesome. Joel Margavage from EASTMOOR Digital. Thanks again for coming through.
Absolutely.
We want to thank Stitch House for having us. That wraps up week 9. Definitely check out EASTMOOR Digital, and we will see y'all next week for It's Business Time.